and I am one of the co-owners of Pro Ergonomics, and I will be your host for today's webinar. So for those of you that aren't aware or new to us, we are an ergonomics consulting and training company specializing in trying to save our clients money by improving efficiencies and reducing injury rates, and just basically finding a solution that's really going to fit you. So as we go into today's webinar, I always find the first slide. I never wants to turn for me, so I apologize for any delays. As a housekeeping measure, I will forewarn, I am working from the home office today, so there may or may not be, a postman stopping by, a dog barking, and I apologize for that. But in the times that we are in, this is where we're at. So anyways, I hope you are all ready. And today what we're going to be talking about is what's on your 2021 ergonomic agenda. It's kind of an interesting question because I don't think anyone thought we would be where we are, and we've seen a lot of changing and a lot of different trends coming out. And so that's basically what we're going to be talking about, is what other companies are currently looking at doing, where you may want to go, what you see that's going to maybe fit, some maybe challenging questions that you may want to pose to yourself or your management, and see what those answers are. So we're going to do a quick reflection of what 2020 looked like as far as what ergonomic services our clients were doing most. And going into 2021, what seems to be the trend on where people are going. So we've already had a lot of, I would say, movement and activity regarding what people are hoping to do in their 2021 kind of ergonomic program or planning or budgeting, and the requests are definitely different, like definitely not trending, I would say, they were before 2020. So just some interesting kind of points and some hopefully things that may, jog something for you, things that you maybe have already been thinking about and wanting to expand on. But either way, this is really just kind of, let's wrap our head around leaving 2020. Let's wrap our kind of movements into what we're going to do for 2021, and how are you aligning with maybe other companies. So obviously we saw, and I think this was the same for everyone, both personally and professionally, I think we thought going into the new decade of 2020 was going to be our year. We really were hoping to make big strides or leaps, as the picture shows, and just kind of go into 2020 with a bang, with big intentions and good follow through. And what we got was, the coronavirus, and it really slammed on the brakes for a lot of us. And all the momentum and energy and motivation that we had starting in 21 really quickly, fell flat. We started getting news in January. By March, we were in lockdown, and it was just a very fast moving kind of thing to get our head around. So this is what we've got. And for a lot of us, we did the best we could. And it was really hard to make some of those strides and movements and changes in our ergonomic program, simply for one of the main reasons is that our workforce was not around. And maybe if our workforce was, their entire focus really was, whether you were management, whether you're an employee, there hasn't been a day, really, has there, that we have not had kind of corona forced into our faces. So everything kind of got put on pause, and we're still not sure where we're going in 2021, but I think there seems to be a lot of kind of hope and direction. So without a doubt, when all the employees started going home, we sat down here and we're like, this is a huge problem. This is going to be kind of a bit of a musculoskeletal disorder nightmare for companies all over the world, simply because when you look at, the availability of tools and equipment and space that we have at home, I don't think there's very few people that can say, oh no, my home office is better than my in-house corporate office. And if you do, that's wonderful. But for the most part, we were all kind of sitting kind of going, well, what do? I'm working on my dining room table. I'm, working on my couch. A lot of people were working in their bedroom because it was a quiet place. So definitely our most requested service out with a new service that we started, and it was this at-home ergonomic setup for employees. It was a temporary kind of look at what we can do today without much of a budget, if any budget, by going around our house and picking up, pillows, books, the testing out chairs, but really looking at what we had available to us in the moment to solve our ergonomic issues. So it was a webinar and training that's designed for those that we know that are coming back to the workplace and looking at, what can we do to help them right now? Because there's lots. If you walk around your home, there's lots that we can do to get a better ergonomic setup. And so this flew. This program really did just fly, and we've had so many great response and wonderful recommendations, and we really appreciate the clients that gave us the feedback that they did, and it was really kind of a wonderful and very energetic kind of pro to an otherwise not so pro situation. Oh, no pun intended there. That was a freak fluke. So now we're kind of seeing, well, what are we doing going into 2021? And do we continue with this same kind of temporary kind of Band-Aid solution approach? Because we're still kind of on the teeter-totter of what is happening. There's talks of the vaccine, but when, where, who's going to have it, what that's going to mean to the workplace, we still don't know. So going through, we've definitely been seeing some trends, and some of them are, kind of holding on the status quo, that whole workstation setup, the training, the webinars, all of that we've been doing in 2020 is following through into 2021. That is still a very hot service that is being picked up daily. Daily, we are getting calls saying, we're wanting to do this for our employees. We need to make sure that at the very least, we're trying to mitigate some of our MSDs. And this is really the best way we can do it, or the only way we can do it. For those that are looking at kind of, no, 2021 is going to be the year we come out of this. This is going to be the year that I kind of regroup from what I thought 2020 was going to be. And rather than kind of jumping into the normal services we see, and not to say that we're still getting those reactive program requests, we're still getting requests for PDAs and JDAs, physical demands analysis and job analysis. But there definitely seems to be a step back with the requests that are coming through to us. A lot of clients are saying, you know what, I want to really revisit and look at my injury prevention plan. I need to really kind of see, where are my lost opportunities? What am I missing? What's not being done that could be done? And where can we get that employee engagement and get them kind of almost leading the program from within? Because, when we are asking your employees to work more ergonomically, it is a conscious choice we have to make on a daily basis. Do we lift properly? Do I bring things closer to me? There's a lot of things employees need to do and need to be on board on to make their workstations better. So we're kind of having a flip-flop between kind of looking at work method retraining and ergonomic awareness, and really pushing that, this is your health, you lead it. Here's the tools and here's what you can do. And we're going to look at really trying to not engineer out. I don't want to say engineer out at this point, because that's kind of the last block that we're looking at, but really kind of strategize out poor work method. And whether they start with the policy or policies becoming a part of it as a reflection into the changes that are made. But these two, this work method and standards within their program, seem to be a really high focus this year going. And so it's just a deviation from what we're used to seeing. The last one's very exciting too. We're also seeing a lot more in the design realm, and we'll talk more about that in a second. So as we kind of go through, when we start off looking at the basics, the setup, the carry through from 2020, this at-home work solution problem / solution. Where are you going? Do we know if we're keeping our employees home? Do we know our employees going to be splitting their time between the office and home? Are they going to be permanently working from home, or are we going to be permanently bringing them back? So, in the beginning of 2020, we very much had kind of that situation where, we had our kids at home, we were working at our kitchen table. You see the look on this poor woman's face. She's doing the best she can. But hopefully, coming into December of 2020, moving into January, this bottom picture really is hopefully where we're looking at, where we have some structure, we have some organization. We definitely have a better setup, whether it looks like this or whether we're still using our books and pillows and towels, but we have comfort at the end of the day because we have routine now. We figured this out to some degree. So where our clients are still struggling is definitely with, I guess, the policy portion of this at-home work kind of agenda. And, we're now going in almost to a year of working at home. So temporary becomes a bit of a subjective word, first off. So depending on the organization, we have some that are, okay, well, we want to move away from the towels and books. We want to provide a budget. What is that budget going to look like? Are we going to stipulate what equipment can be purchased and can't through a purchasing standard, something that we've talked about many times on our webinars and in our programs. We also look at, how are we going to collaborate between the expectations of the employees and what management can do to support them, and what does that look like? And I'm assuming the scheduling and the deadlines, that's been sorted. But really where we're getting a lot of pushback is, specifically with this group of people that are splitting their time. They're in at the office for 2 days a week, but they're at home for 3 days a week, or vice versa. Well, now what do we do? Do we provide a $500, $600, $700 office ergonomic adjustable chair for both workstations? Because that's a fairly large expenditure and a very big hit to the budget. But that is something that internally we need to kind of define. At what point do we start saying, okay, you're working at home at this point, this kind of exceeds, let's say maybe if we're going to go on maybe a NIOSH standard, they use terms like, your frequent and occasional. Okay, if you're working at home more than a third of the time, which is kind of the lingo that we use a lot when we're talking about physical demands. If we are working at home more than a third of the time, then you can qualify for this. And maybe you then kind of move into this kind of category, which affords you more of a budget or this kind of flexibility or whatever or however you want to develop that program. I mean, it changes literally from client to client, so I don't want to get too in-depth in the minutia of that. But at the end of the day, the review part needs to seem to be, because although, I've seen such great kind of collaboration and communication with the staff and management trying to build this new at work from home or remote working program, we're still finding that now we're starting to see a lot more of the injuries are coming up, which makes sense. It makes total sense. We've now been home for, or working in these kind of split conditions for 6-7 months, if not more. And yeah, this is where the aches and pains should be kind of coming up from an MSD, because that amount of time has gone by with maybe poor workstation setup or poor work habits, and our bodies are now yelling at us to kind of do something. So this is where we're starting to see a lot more of, okay, we did the training, but whether or not we have a program or plan in place to somehow audit that, whether it's a virtual call that you are talking to your employees to kind of update, did you make the changes? How does that look? Whether it's a questionnaire that they have to submit. We've seen lots of different attempts to try and close that loop, and really well done. I've been very impressed with all of the efforts that have gone into that. And so when we're kind of moving into this, now we're dealing with injuries, this is where we really need to kind of create a better standard of, well, what classification do you fall in? What stage of an injury are we looking at? so that we can be a little bit smarter with kind of the dollars and cents portion of this program. For some of us that have decided, you know what, our employees, this is an opportunity for us to maybe minimize real estate or, maximize flexibility of our staff, whatever the reasoning, but we have heard lots of, specifically in the tech industry, a lot of companies are saying, you know what, you have your home office, let's keep you there. So in that situation, we're kind of now being gently nudged, and it's something we knew was coming, and it's something we've been working on developing, is now, we now need to provide training that doesn't just look at, pillows and books, but we are looking at permanent solutions, and what does that look like? And how does that training differ from a training session that we would offer in an office setting? Does it differ? For some companies, they're not differing at all. But that may be the companies that they're going to uphold the same standards in-house as they do at home, and that's wonderful and that's great. But for a lot of us, we don't have the budget to do that. What we can do in-house and the resources that we have, facilities, staff being able to install, so on and so forth, we just can't extend that all the way through to at-home offices as well. So how do we kind of provide this in between training where you're still at a home office, there's still certain things that are unique to working in a home office, but we understand that the temporary solutions that we provided you in March may not be upholding or stopping injury for the long term, because pillows start to lose air because they're not intended to be used that way, or books start to shift, or someone, oh, the book I needed, my child used and it never got put back, so now my monitor is a little bit lower than it was 2 months ago. There's lots of variabilities that come into play when we're working from home that do jeopardize our ergonomic setup. So as a result, we are seeing kind of a new run on how we are doing these, specifically office. I will be honest, we haven't seen a lot of, kind of on the floor, more industrial type assessments, simply because it's not something that we feel is adequately done. So we've kind of said, this is something that we do need to come in and see. There are just way too many variables in an industrial position than there are kind of in the office setting. So, but the office setting has, parlayed really nicely into a virtual assessment, and, not without some hiccups, I'm sure, with technology and whatnot, but they're actually really effective. So looking at, specifically for those that are, working from home and may not want a troop of people walking through to do an actual hands-on assessment, it's something we can still offer. You can still provide, making sure that for the people that are still struggling, well, what was the piece that kind of didn't get transferred or relate well to that employee, whether it be, they were working on the right side and now they need a left side kind of mouse operation, whether the chair needs adjusting further, or just maybe recommendations on, what, they did the best they can with what they had, but now we need to provide some permanent options, and we want recommendations on what those are, and that's why we've been brought in. So we've been definitely doing a bit of both. We've been doing in-house assessments and virtual assessments, but it's been a very interesting kind of split between the two, and how different organizations kind of navigate that. We have an issue, which is, likely to happen. As I said, specifically right now, we're getting more and more of these calls, and unfortunately, but in the end of the day, the company is doing the right thing by getting it assessed and looking at how are we able to do it safely in the times that we're in. So then we've had, as I said, this is kind of the going into, that's kind of a recap of what people were doing to combat the at-home, the remote working situation. But now we're kind of moving into this whole, what people are doing in 2021. And the program review, I would say, is by far the #1 call I've had by numerous clients. And from what I've been kind of hearing from my business partners, it sounds like varying degrees or questioning of those have kind of come through on their end too. So people really wanting to look at, and they're not necessarily calling it a program review. I think the way it's been worded most frequently has been, I need to I need to have a better prevention plan. I need to have a better, injury reduction strategy. And really it comes back to your ergonomic program and what does it look like. So, we've been looking at, well, how can we look at the gaps? How does that work? Like, where do you, as maybe the organizer, of the program, where do you feel your gaps are? Where do your injury stats kind of lead you to show you where the gaps are, and really kind of auditing how things have changed, whether it be because you're working at a remote office, even in, the manufacturing and more industrial world, the addition of, we're wearing masks, we're wearing face shields, we have plexiglass dividers. Communication is one thing that has been hugely compromised. It is, I can tell you from our side of the coin, trying to interview and gather information in-house with all of the PPE and the barriers in place with the noise. It is a test. It is not the easiest thing I have ever done, and that is for sure. And we're trying to find, different ways to capture this information easily without driving everyone crazy or halting or slowing down the line, because it's been, not being able to see people's faces move, not being able to kind of interpret facial expression, and definitely having the muffled barriers from all these multi-layers of protection that we know we need, is challenging. And is that impacting how your employees are working? Is it causing, different postures? Are they leaning one way to another because they're trying to communicate? Are they backing up further because their PPE kind of makes them, I don't know, whether feel like they just need to change their postures? So we are seeing work methods being altered, is basically the short of what I'm trying to say. And it needs to be looked at. So whether we're doing it, whether you're doing it house, whether you're talking to your employees or all of the above, definitely looking at how we're auditing how some of these changes are impacting what we're doing, because we are seeing a higher number of MSDs right now. And looking at how else we can just kind of move our program into a more, reduced injury kind of position. So we had the old way, we're looking at the new way. And that's kind of the interesting thing that I'm seeing. We obviously have promoted program development all the way along. We feel very strongly that the real way to make a big impact is going to be looking at a multifaceted ergonomics program. But, companies will pick up on, a couple of those elements, but they aren't necessarily looking at doing all of them. And we've just been having a renewed interest in, a bit more open-minded for what I can do right now. So you can kind of see, like, how is our claims being impacted? What are we doing there? Is there any post-offer screening? Really trying to find a fit that works, and looking at part of the problem is the employees that we have doing the job really never could do the job. They physically weren't fit enough to do the job. And how does that look? What kind of ergonomic program and assistance and communication do you have? Do you have a champion? Is it your Joint Health and Safety Committee? Do you have an ergonomics committee? Do you have, champions on the floor that kind of look out for your ergonomics issues, whether it be your supervisors, lead hands, anybody really is a candidate at this point. And we really kind of want to see where are the eyes and ears that are watching this program and seeing it in place, or worse, not seeing it happen at all. The ergonomic assessments is definitely been something that I think everyone at some point has looked at, whether it be the office assessment, physical demands, risk assessments, job hazard analyses, and we're seeing a lot more focus right now on this kind of second to last point, which is the job procedures. Where can we get and establish firmly the best work methods? And that kind of brings you up to this number one, this training and education. Really looking at trying to, I keep wanting to say engineer out, but that means something completely different in our world, but really push the good work methods and get your employees to recognize bad ones. We don't necessarily recognize we're doing something wrong until someone points it out to us or shows us a picture of what we look like when we're doing it. And then we're like, oh my goodness, like, no, that's not good. That's never going to be, healthy for my body or going to prevent injury. And so we then change how we're doing things. So we now need to kind of maybe determine a way of trying to do that. And that's been kind of a big focus, a really big focus on where people are wanting to kind of take their program. Sorry, I'm having some screen issues. So as I said, looking at that post-offer program or screening that could make sure that the workers that you have are fit for duty, are the right fit for the job. Looking at stretching programs has been one we've been getting a lot of requests on, or at least just requests for information. And we've been looking at kind of designing for existing and new build areas and updating job hazard analyses with kind of an ergonomic bent, with a focus to ergonomics, so that we actually have job instructions around moving equipment to be within a certain space, work instruction on how to lift properly. So all of these things are have always been there, but I would say I've never seen them requested quite as frequently as I'm getting them requested now. So definitely just some new trends in the ergonomics world. The one exciting one, they're all exciting to me, but really this one is something that we do frequently, but I've definitely seen a higher frequency over the last maybe 6 months, where people have very, very specific agendas when they're asking for their design information. So, we've had some clients where they have a very specific task and they want to change the task, but before they do, they're like, you know what, we're doing it now, like this, at this height, at this weight, with 2 people. We'd really like to maybe increase the height because maybe it's a racking situation, or we'd like to go down from 2 people to 1 person. Can we do this safely? So looking at biomechanical modeling to kind of extrapolate this information to tell you beforehand, yes, this looks like it should be all fine as far as the ergonomic parameters go, or maybe no, not directly, but if you were to do A, B, and C, which are all minimally invasive, then yes. So it's just been very, very task specific, rather than looking at, often when we get brought in on design projects, we're looking at kind of the last point, which is kind of an overall, we're looking at redesigning an area and we're wanting to make sure heights are the right heights, depths are the right depths, racking is adequate, equipment is low force, so on and so forth. But I would say over the last 6 months, people have been very much looking at just kind of micromanaging their design projects and having very, very specific questions. We've had quite a few. As much as there's been task related, we've also had equipment. We're bringing in this handheld device. Is that safe for 100% of the work population? If yes, great. If no, what are the issues? Where are the issues? And how can we maybe either redesign the piece of equipment or look for an alternative that's maybe already on the market that is going to meet the standards and guidelines that we've highlighted as being concerns. So very interesting, very high-end, in-depth kind of ergonomic approaches, but a lot more requests. So we're being kind of smarter with maybe what we're asking, and we're getting very kind of intricate with the questions that we ask, so that we're not being given so much information that we can't manage it. Because let's be honest, you guys are managing a lot of other portfolios right now. If one of those portfolios has COVID stamped on it, we all know that is just super hot, very high profile right now, and it can't be put on the back burner, because our employees are fearful and stressed and interested, and they're very aware of it, and they want answers. So, we have stuff that we've never had to deal with before that is kind of taking up our time. So it appears that the trend is that, okay, well, if I have a question, I'm not just going to ask all the questions at once. I'm going to micromanage this and look at what do I need to do first, what what information can I kind of digest and extrapolate into an implementation plan at the end of the day. So very smart, really, really good high-end kind of ergonomics happening with a lot of our clients, and it's been extremely exciting. Oh, sorry, this is a video. I didn't realize I put a video in. So yeah, looking at kind of, this was the height. We're moving it all the way over here. We're using this tool. You can see she has a hook in her hand, and we have to move it across. So what we're able to do here is kind of show, well, this is what it looks like now with what you have. You can see everything is potentially, you know, where the red, green, and yellows are, make our design modifications and show, you know, now we're showing much less reds, way more greens, and moving forward in that regard. So what we've been working on in response to these requests and these kind of just people really looking for how we can maybe invoke change is looking at, well, what kind of tools, what kind of in-house things can we provide and kind of arm you with to help manage the program within. As I said, it's a program that is very personal. Ergonomics, you know, it's not like guarding where you can bring someone in and there's standards up the wazoo and, you know, everything gets put in to a certain spec, and it really has very little to do with the individual. It has a lot to do with the machinery, it has a lot to do with the tasks. And we are, you know, we're going for 100% safety, and that's great. That's what we're wanting to do. But when you start talking about ergonomics, now, yes, we may be talking about some of the engineering things like, you know, lift assists and height adjustability and carts and, you know, those kind of purchased, engineered, designed pieces of equipment. But a lot of the conversation really does come back to, well, how are you setting up your workstation? How are you working? Are you lifting properly? I've seen some of the best ergonomic equipment, you know, ever designed that I've seen. And, you know, as humans, I still see it used improperly. So how can we engineer that stuff out? Because by doing that, we actually kind of increase our program by threefold. Simply because if all of a sudden your supervisors, your lead hands, your employees become the mouthpiece for what is good ergonomics and what is bad ergonomics as it pertains to work method and body posture, then all of a sudden everyone is policing the program every day, all the time. And so it's just a matter of giving those individuals the confidence to, you know, be able to recognize when, oh, you know what, I'm reaching too far. I need to move this forward. Or as a coworker, you know what, why I do it this way. Why don't you try doing it this way? Because this is kind of turning you into a pretzel. Supervisors, as they're doing workplace inspections, you know, really trying to find kind of hands-on tools that allow the employees, the supervisors, you know, the people on the floor, handheld options that kind of take them through step by step how they can kind of maybe interact in that type of conversation, how they can go about making that behavioral change and having those conversations in a positive manner. You know, it's challenging. You're already saying, you know, maybe they're not working properly, which may get people's backs up, but how can we make this a positive thing that's not going to be felt like reprisal or discipline or, you know, I'm getting my wrist slapped. So looking at, we've been, you know, checklists that the employees help develop themselves. So that's going to become a bit clearer as we kind of move forward. But one of the sessions that we've kind of, and I would say this goes beyond just COVID. These started maybe probably about 3 or 4 years ago, if not more. But doing training without a PowerPoint slide, doing training, you know, right there at the workstation, just having a very open conversation with all the buts the employees can throw at you. You know, the more buts, the better. Oh, I could, but, oh, I would, but, yep, bring them. Let's talk about those buts. Let's talk about those concerns, and let let's not have me tell you the right answer, but let maybe, us as ergonomists help guide you to developing the right answer. And I believe Jen had a great day, and she was on her way home from doing one of these sessions, and our client called her and said, "Oh my God, I just walked into the lunchroom and they're still talking about it. They're still arguing the benefits of how they do something over how another person does it." And that person's kind of saying, "Yeah, but no, I do it this way because," and he's like, "But at the end of the day, they're compromising and they're putting together like work strategies that are like, they sound amazing. And there's so much excitement and it's all positive." So that's kind of the direction we're trying to take some of these tools, is have those conversations, develop the tools post the conversation that's going to reflect what the employees have said, so that A, they feel heard, but B, they're not going to they're going to be able to remember those very animated conversations that maybe they had on the lunchroom or on the floor. So, and then kind of disseminating that then over to the supervisors so that they could talk about it, which again reinforces what the employees have done and what they've talked about and what they're kind of strategizing or moving towards, as well as audits that we can go back and make sure that they're still doing them. So all of these things are tools that we're trying to engineer. Some of them are kind of canned kind of packages or tools that we can just provide, but more often than not, they're very customized, very specific to the workplace, and more importantly, specific to engaging the employees in that brainstorming process. Because often we'll say, okay, well, yes, no, you need to do it this way, and then you get all the buts. And the problem is we may have an opportunity to counter all of those concerns, but how we've been training and how we've been having that conversation before hasn't allowed us to hear them. And so, and it's always better to be, the one who comes up with the solution rather than the one to be told the solution. So, we become experts at guiding that kind of conversation. So this has been definitely a big component of that program, is not just looking at, okay, the PDAs, the training, the poets or the stretching, but actually looking at specifically that work method and getting tools that are going to help to stabilize it as an actual program rather than just a one-day conversation. So kind of doing these job coaching sessions where, they're one-on-one or small groups, and it's exactly what I was just saying is, what, we're not talking about engineering controls. We're not talking about how much money we can spend on this workstation. We're talking about what we can do now. Within the next 30 minutes, how can we make this workstation better? How can we make this workstation more ergonomic and work with it more ergonomically? So very exciting, really, really dynamic sessions that we love doing, and we've been getting just great responses from. So the second one is kind of the in-house kind of portion of that, and really kind of empowering, whether it be your joint health and safety committees, your supervisors, or even your employees, because as much as you have this kind of one-on-one, which is very specific to what they're doing right now, it doesn't necessarily arm them with the background information to be able to parlay those ideas ahead of time into new equipment. So for instance, yes, we figured out how to work with the piece of machinery that we're working on right now, and we've developed work methods and strategies and equipment suggestions around that during the job coaching session. But a year down the road, we're looking at a new piece of equipment. Well, we don't want to wait for them to make all the bad mistakes before we try and get the good going. And so arming your employees with kind of that foundational information of ergonomic principles and how they can almost audit those new pieces of equipment and themselves moving forward. So yes, things may change, but at the end of the day, ergonomics doesn't. Ergonomics really, neutral posture is neutral posture, low force is low force, low repetition. We know the principles. We just want to find a way that's going to kind of invigorate our staff to kind of be able to light bulb moment when things are starting to slide, and we need to kind of reinvestigate that, okay, this isn't working. We need to start looking at something else. So really kind of the in-house training is very much empowering your workforce to try and continue that audit process throughout. Try and get them thinking ergonomically all the time as much as possible. I know that's harder when it's not the only hat you wear, but bringing more people into the conversation rather than having maybe, you know, if you do have an in-house ergonomist, that's great. Or if you're the health and safety person or the HR person or whoever you are, but if you're a person, your program will struggle. I can guarantee it, because so much of ergonomics is about the person themselves. And so you need to have all of those people on board if you're going to get movement and generate that kind of lower injury rate that we're all kind of trying to achieve. And if we're able to achieve lower injuries, then we'll start to see higher efficiencies kind of come into play as almost a byproduct to that. Healthier workers are able to work harder, faster, as well as the fact that if we're not reaching or bending or turning ourselves into pretzels to do the job, there's an efficiency of movement that's happening there too that's going to allow us to move quicker. So we're then kind of seeing that, okay, this is great. What we can, as you know, as pro ergonomics, as consultants, we can come in, we can help you, we can arm you, we can, you know, empower you to do these things, but we're not going to be there on the day-to-day. So how can you keep your program going when you're just one person? And one of the big trends that is moving forward is really focusing on refresher training and looking at how does that schedule change from element to element? For instance, if you're doing ergonomic principle refresher training, I would say if you did that annually, that would probably be good. That would be a really good foundational starting point if they did annual refresher training. But if you are talking manual material handling, I would say as a minimum, it should be done twice a year. I mean, I can tell you from myself, my personal experience, you know, I train this, and I notice every time we train it that my lifting practices, how I get my groceries in and out of my car, like it all becomes tighter. It all becomes better after I finish doing one of these sessions. So I just want to, you know, that's the same for anybody. And they may not have, you know, a kinesiology or ergonomic background to kind of maybe make it last longer. So you really need to kind of reinforce some of the work method things. So manual material handling one is more of a generic one, but if you have, you know, something else, there needs to be refreshers that are happening much more frequently. Now, this is kind of online, more structured format of kind of completing that. But some of the other things, the work method type things, you could be doing them kind of through safety talks. But really looking at how am I going to make sure that these ergonomic elements are repeatedly being kind of re-injected into my staff so that they can kind of get reinvigorated with them. As well, when we start seeing, you know, new employees, having a system that's going to be able to easily, you could just do a whole bunch of training and then have hirings, you know, 3 months later. Well, what could you do on the interim before you do maybe more in-house training? You could put them through a refresher or online module. So the online modules have become something that companies are definitely looking for, something that's customized. They're not looking for like a canned package because they don't want to see, you know, if I'm in the office, I don't want to see a plant floor. And if I'm on the plant floor and in automotive, I don't want to see a brewery. So those types of things where we actually see potentially people we know, pictures we know, definitely equipment and work areas that we know, because it keeps us engaged. We know that this is actually meant for me because this is where I work. And that's been taking a huge trend as well. So at the end of the day, that's kind of where it sums up. So we, as I said, we have all of these kind of things happening. at various levels depending on each client and how much customization they're looking for. So if you are struggling, if some of the things that we've talked about today were like, oh, that's exactly what I was hoping to hear, or oh, I was thinking about something like that, give us a call and we may be able to help kind of work through that. If you're still struggling with the remote work, as I said, literally get calls daily looking for the training element as well as the assessment element on this. So we can talk to you about what a lot of clients are doing and how they're managing it, and see if you can find a fit that's going to work with you. But at the end of the day, hopefully 2021 is going to be, upward and onward, and we're getting back on track. And, our employees are very much open to change right now. We've had a lot of change in a very short period of time. And so if you are looking at making change with your program, now is definitely the time to do it, because people are receptive to it. We've had to change a lot, and we're still on that train. So you might as well get on and take advantage of a bad situation, I guess, and get some of the things maybe moving forwards in a direction that, maybe today hopefully made you think about some different ways of how you could do what you were doing. But if not, then, and if you are doing well, that's great, and we're very happy for you. So to end, I'll say happy holidays to all of you from all of us at Pro Ergonomics. And yeah, if there's anything we can do to help, we are here for you. If you have any questions, usually what we do, I normally say this at the beginning, you can either submit them here, and we will kind of either reach out to you independently and kind of answer them, or we will sometimes put together a larger broadcast email to those that attended only, showing you what the questions were that people asked and what our response was. So if you do have any questions, please let us know. We are here to help in any way we can. All right, so we're a little bit early. It gives me maybe a chance to ask any questions you have, but if not, then again, have a happy holidays and a wonderful break, and we'll maybe see you in 2021. Take care.